Welcome to Law Focus. I'm Edward St. Pé. Let's now welcome the star of the program, Mr.
Hey, Edward.
Nathan Prescott.
Bump, man.
It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been about a month.
It's been about a month. Then it's good to see you, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everyone. I hope for a joyous 2021. We've had a pretty rough 2020, but I think we're, there's allegations of a vaccine. We're going to see how it's distributed. It's something we can talk about here on Law Focus. There's a lot of things to talk about.
That's right. The vaccine.
The vaccine. So we've had a pretty interesting November in aspects of the law. We had an election, but the election not only affected us on the presidential level or the executive level, but it also affected us on the state level. And what I would like to do on this episode, because a lot of the questions that have been coming to me, via email, phones, whatever, have been about what's happening in Mississippi and where we're going. So what I want to do, the Law Focus show is always about sort of the law and how the law integrates into your day-to-day life. Mm-hmm. One thing that is interesting about that is that in November 3rd, November 4th, we had a big election, and of course the law is sort of playing itself out. Now, we've all heard the stop the steal chants, right? You've heard that?
I have not.
No, but that's because you're not listening to the news. Edward told me he's on a news diet.
I turned it off at the election, at the conclusion, and I turned it off, and I have watched no news at all since the election. I watched the NFL Network.
And from a philosophical perspective, do you think the world has spun out of control because you haven't observed it?
Well, if the little bit that I hear flying by,
right,
incoming, okay?
But you have no control over that, right?
I have no control.
Have you found more peace not watching the news than watching the news?
The answer is yes.
Yes, more peace not.
More peace not watching it,
right,
because it's all people's opinions anyway,
right,
for the most part. The news is not like it was in the days of Walter Cronkite where they try to give you the facts. Now it's everybody's opinion.
Right.
I don't want to know their opinions.
Right.
Because whether they're on the right or the left, you know what I mean? I'm tired of opinions.
Do you find yourself having to, I'm often in this circumstance too, you find yourself watching the news and then you're just arguing with every point they make. It's very hard. It's just like an editorial melee where we're all fighting over whose opinion matters.
And it's extreme on both sides.
It is.
You've got extremism on the right and you've got extremism on the left. And so, I mean, I've had enough of it. The NFL Network, I can follow my Saints.
Right.
That's all.
You still care about the Saints.
I still care about the Saints.
And isn't it, what a big sort of blow up of a balloon and sort of a spurt out when the Saints are doing so well, they're going to the playoffs, and nobody's there to hear it. There's a song in the Dome, "Stand Up and Get Crunk." I wrote my buddies after the game this weekend. If the Saints are still getting crunk, but nobody's there to enjoy it, does anybody stand up? I think crunk is a combination. It's like inebriated.
Oh, crunk means like you're drinking.
Drinking and doing other stuff, I think.
Oh, is that
it's like a combination.
Crunk. Oh, crunk. So you really you crocked.
Well, Crocs are those ugly shoes.
But sort of like you get what I mean. You're blown up.
Blown up. I mean, I'm sure there's been words for snockered. Like we can go back to the old days. I don't know. There's some old words for it, right?
I'm crunk.
2 sheets, 3 sheets to the wind.
Right.
I'm crunk.
I get it, yeah.
Stand Up and Get Crunk is a song that they play in the Dome, and it's like the old question, like if the Saints are getting rowdy and nobody's there to stand up and get crunk to the. Like a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there to hear it.
Well,
does it still make a sound? I guess it's like to the perception.
It's just kind of surreal, to see a game without people in there. I don't know, it's a different experience, But I tell you what, though, it shows you the how important football is, for people, because I think that it gives America something to look forward to and to follow him. Even without the crowds there, even via television, it's a factor. It's like bread and circus from the Roman days.
Yeah, bread and circus. Yeah, I agree. And then one thing that's very interesting to me, and we try to integrate the law whenever we can in these kinds of popular discussions, because what I believe is as we communicate, you and I, in a normal conversation, we bring in little aspects of the law, and it really sort of underlines my point that the law is everywhere, right? So you've got this Saints game, right? And people are saying, let us in the Dome, let us in the Dome. And they're saying, no, how can they do that legally? And another question is, you've got this Saints game and people have season tickets. And those season tickets, are you contractually obligated to allow people into the Dome? Well, you're not, because on those tickets, on that little contract that you sign, they say they can take those tickets away, or they can do things because of the CDC or because of public health concerns. Right. And that's exactly what they're doing. But if you watch it on TV and there's like canned-in crowd noise. It's all
Isn't that something?
It's wild.
They've got it down to the science.
On NPR, there's a show, Wait, Don't Tell Me, and it's sort of like a comical news quiz, right? And I overheard it a bit this weekend. It was on the radio, and I listened to it, and there was no laughter. And it was sort of like, oh no, like you needed to plug a laugh track.
It adds a lot.
It does.
Because it prompts the audience to say, oh, it's funny, now I'm going to clap too.
Right.
You know, I like that. It's very funny, I heard them laugh. You know?
Well, yeah, I think they've done some studies with like apes and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of mimicry, right, in our society. Necessarily, like you smile, I smile, it creates a common bond. A chimp smiles, another chimp smiles, it creates a common bond. Same thing to laughing. It's more fun to laugh together. Right?
Right.
And it creates a sense of community and a sense of connection.
Right.
And that connection is gone because of COVID, because we all have to remain separate for a period. So that's very interesting. You know,
it's an interesting time. Yeah.
It's very. Where were we? Oh, November. The November elections. What happened? So there's the Stop the Steal on the Biden Trump thing. But what I really wanted to focus to, I wanted to get really local with you guys and say that. Things that we thought had been resolved in Mississippi are not yet resolved. There's still some questions, some legal questions concerning them. So the first thing is, let's talk about the flag, right? So we had a cool show where we picked all the flags out and we showed, well, the new Magnolia flag passed.
That's the one that you picked.
Yeah, it passed overwhelmingly. And so what I wanted to, first, interesting things about the new Magnolia flag. The Magnolia flower, this is just little significant things. You know, on a flag, if you look into it, these new flags, when they put a new flag on on the presentation, it has a lot of symbolism to it. They sort of have to load it up with symbolism because we haven't had a new flag in 126, 130 years. So it's time for, when they put something on there, they want it to be important. So the magnolia signifies sort of blooming and rebirth. Because believe it or not, like I like plants a lot, you like plants a lot. But believe it or not, a magnolia blooms for a very long time. A magnolia tree blooms for a very long time. And oftentimes in a year, it may have 2 to 3 bloomings. So we've got that rebirth. You know, that's pretty interesting. We're the 20th state in the union, so we have 20 stars around the magnolia, which is very interesting.
It looks nice.
It does. And then there's one big star to represent the native people that were here before the United States was formed.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh?
It is cool. I'm glad they included them.
Yeah, so when you look at the state flag, look at the magnolia, think about the rebirth and the blooming. We're blooming, we're reborn. You know, this flag is sort of a rebirth of our symbology. And then think about the native flag, and I don't think that's represented in a lot of states. So the people that like to stomp on Mississippi for being ultra-conservative or not progressive, think about how that star references people that were here before, before
the white man came.
Yeah, before the white man came, or before the United States was formed. You know, I was at a loss for words here, but that's it, right?
That's interesting, yeah.
So we represent the 20 states, but there was something before that, and that's what that star represents.
I didn't know that, but that's good.
That's cool.
I'm really glad to hear it.
Across from the magnolia are 2 sort of gold ribbons. And those ribbons, that gold color, does not seem indicative of Mississippi to me. You know, we haven't seen that on a lot of our state symbols. And the reason that is there is to impress upon other viewers the richness of our arts and culture. You know, home of the blues, William Faulkner, things like that.
Yeah.
Down here on the coast, we've got Walter English. Yeah. The gold symbolizes richness in our artistic community.
Which is very nice.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then we've got the In God We Trust, which is part of the state legislature. So we've got a pretty complete flag. And I've started seeing
flag.
It's starting to wave around too.
Is it around?
Yeah, I saw it. My brother lives up near Memphis, and he's taking some pictures of his area. You know, there's some suburbs of Memphis, Senatobia, Hernando up in North Mississippi.
They're manufacturing them already.
They're coming out. And then when I had to renew my tag the other day, just for question, I asked, is there a new tag with a license plate on it? And they said, a new license plate with a flag on it. They said, not yet, but those come pretty quickly.
Well, you picked that one, so you were correct. I picked the one with the shield.
Yeah.
With the rivers on it.
Sure.
I just like that one for some reason. It was to me, it was a little stronger. But those were the finalists, though.
Yeah, we got good taste, I guess. And then another thing is like, now that we have that flag, whether you liked it or not, it's here.
It's here, yeah.
And as the month, there's only been a month since we passed it, but as the month passes and as you start seeing it in different places, you become more and more affiliated with it. It's weird how we can all get under that banner now.
Now that we understand it, that you've explained. I mean, I didn't know that there was a symbolic of the Aboriginals.
Yeah, that's right.
But I was, I'm not reading as much as I used to because I don't have time, it seems like. So I listen to Audible books. And I've been listening to something that I ordered a long time ago, and I haven't listened to it, but I started listening to it on a recent trip to Memphis, 6 hours.
It's all
Aboriginal, the Aboriginal history of the United States, basically. And it's really, you talk about illuminating as far as, what really happened.
What, is it People's History of the United States? That's not what it's called.
I think it's called the
Aboriginal.
Yeah, I mean, it's from a PhD, a lady who has a PhD in history who is an Indian.
I got you.
Okay, so she wrote it. But it's starkly, it's eye-opening to know what they went through.
It's strange when you change the perspective. I can remember.
Change the perspective, is right.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I can remember reading The People's History of the United States from Howard Zinn. It was talking about the people before, and it's eye-opening.
Yeah,
it's very eye-opening, and I think our children are benefiting now from a perspective shift. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about things from different perspectives, because we all have different perspectives, right?
Yeah, and it happened. I mean, what happened, it really did happen. A lot of things happened that the average person, if you don't read this type of material, you wouldn't know.
Right.
Because it's really been brushed aside.
And it's right there on the flag now. So everybody make note of the flag, right. Understand what it is. But from a legal perspective, what's going on with the flag? So the flag came up for a vote, right? The legislature, it was sort of an amalgamated way for the legislature to do it. The legislature, remember back in June of this year, essentially said, we're not going to have the old flag anymore. The old flag is out. They got pressure from all the major state universities, Ole Miss, Southern, Mississippi State, the HBCUs, everybody. HBCUs, they all came out and said, no flag. The SEC started pounding down. Sanderson Farms, the big industries, pounded down, so they finally removed the flag. Philip Gunn and them removed the flag. They then had a long search committee that came up with the flags, and ultimately we got a chance to vote. Mississippi overwhelmingly approved the current flag and said, this is our flag. So that's the end of the story, right? No. So now there's a Let Mississippi Vote coalition. And what they're saying is we should have had a chance to vote not on just this one flag, but we should have had a choice on flags, which, that's where they are right now. And if they can get 106,000 signatures by the 2021 session, so we've got about 6-7 months, we could see another flag vote on the ballot.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I didn't know it.
Right. What flag do you think the Let Mississippi Vote coalition would like to see? I think they would like to see the battle flag back. We're going to find out.
Right. Well, they would have a chance to vote on that flag again.
Yeah. So it might not be over. It more likely than not is over. But just be aware, Mississippians, that there is a referendum circumstance out there that allows for people to put things on a referendum, amend the state constitution, do certain things, and it benefits us to familiarize ourselves more with the law, because that is the law that governs us. That is the law, under which we live our day-to-day lives. But yes, the flag was overwhelmingly approved by the state of Mississippi. A good question out there, and if any viewers have any insight onto this, please give me a call. But a good question is has that state flag been officially adopted? Has anybody seen it hanging over public buildings yet? I don't know. It was sort of hard in the research this morning to tell exactly what the next step is, because we understand that the Mississippians have approved the flag, and we understand what the flag is, but when is it finalized?
Well, when I was growing up,
Sure.
through the years, in Louisiana, I liked the rebel flag, because I thought, man, it's cool because it's like it's like a rebel flag.
Sure.
Because we were rebels,
Cool.
Yeah, and it was like like a thumping of the nose to the authorities. I don't know.
I see. That's how you saw it, right?
I didn't see it from a racial standpoint.
Sure.
I was a kid growing up, and when you see that flag, it was like it's kind of a cool flag, and it represents the rebels. Okay. As you get older and you become more conscious.
So you were in Louisiana.
I was in Louisiana.
So you had the Pelican.
We had the Pelican, but I mean, we didn't.
Right. So when you saw this, it was.
We just saw the rebel flag as the symbol of
the rebels,
the Confederacy, which was our side.
Sure.
Meaning against the Yankees. But as you get older, you do become more sensitive to the reality of what it represents to half of our population.
Sure.
Which is not something that's good. So. Therefore, you look at it through a different lens, and you become more conscious of the fact that if it's not for everyone, then we should have something that will be more uniting than something that keeps people separated.
Sure.
But I think a lot of people felt the same way as I did. They said, "Well, that's my flag because I grew up with that." And okay, I understand that perspective too.
Sure.
But there comes a time when the times, you got to grow.
Yeah. And, you got to vote. And that's what happened. Everybody got to go vote. And this is what happened with the flag. So, just be aware as we move forward, there may be another vote. And,
might be another.
You got that right? You've got that ability to go out and vote. And that's where we are on that. It's pretty interesting. Speaking of the right to go out and vote, we voted on something else in November. We voted on Initiative 65 and Initiative 65A, which is the medical marijuana statutes, or constitutional amendments in Mississippi. This is my perspective, and I'm not going to editorialize. I really try not to do that on the show. I want you guys to decide. I like to integrate the law into what's going on, and this is definitely part of the law and what happened out there. So it looked like the legislature was medical marijuana is coming. You can look at what's going on nationwide. And medical marijuana, even recreational marijuana, in so many states, 22 states, I believe, have now permitted
decriminalized.
Yeah, decriminalized recreational marijuana. So Mississippi is out there, and they don't even have a medical marijuana statute. And there's a lot of interest groups that are pushing for medical marijuana, and pushing the legislature to go ahead and adopt a statute or do something that allows medical marijuana in Mississippi. The legislature didn't do anything about it. So what happened ultimately is this coalition came out and got 230,000 signatures to get Amendment 65 on the Mississippi ballot. The legislature didn't do it. It was done by the people. The people signed a referendum, an initiative that said we got to get it on the ballot. And that's what we were talking about with the flag, guys. You can't have it both ways. If you supported an initiative like that, this is the medical marijuana initiative. It got on the ballot. There's also an initiative out there for Let Mississippi Vote. There's something in the state constitution that allows Mississippians to put stuff on the ballot, whether you like it or not. If you get enough signatures, you can get on there. That's what happened with 65 and 65A. Well, that's what happened with 65. Inactivity from the legislature on something that Mississippians wanted. Activity by the people on something the Mississippians wanted. 65 on the ballot. Now, what was 65? 65 was an amendment to the Mississippi Constitution. People were up in arms about that. The governor said we do not need 65. The former governor said we do not need 65. A lot of people came out and said we do not need 65. It changes. The law enforcement came out and said we do not need 65. It changes the Constitution. It does all these things. It's not regulated enough. What it did was it allowed for medical marijuana use for 22 different ailments, including MLS, Parkinson's disease, AIDS, HIV, epilepsy, cancer, some things like that. But the critics said, hey, look, there's not enough regulation on this thing, just point blank. And, those are some valid concerns, I'm sure. And they said it's not enough regulation, so 65 should not pass. Now, what happened there, right? So if the legislature would have had a state statute that said this is how we're going to implement medical marijuana, they could have done whatever they wanted to it. Right? They could have made it look however they wanted and then used the normal lawmaking process to get it on the books exactly as they wanted, right? But they didn't. They were inactive. Because of the inactivity there, the referendum people came in and said, well, this is how we want it, and we can put it on the ballot. You see, Edward? They got end around it, right? And them not having it on there, the referendum came out and they said, well, 65 is how we're going to have it. So the legislature had another move that they could do, and that's where we all got confused, right? So the legislature said, okay, well, we didn't put it on the statute. We didn't put it on there, right? We didn't pass a law that the people wanted. So we're going to put 65A out there. And 65A, who knows what it said? Who knows what 65 said? Do you remember voting?
I remember.
Did you sit in there for an hour and a half and read all that stuff?
Well, I was already hip to the scam.
You were?
I was hip to the scam before I got in.
Yeah.
So when I saw it, I knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, it was very confusing. And however, as confusing as it was, it still passed.
Yeah, that is nutty to me. Leading up to the vote, whether I thought yes or nay on 65, I did have some concerns about what was happening to us as Mississippians. It seemed strange. Now, I research for a living. I mean, I had to write a lot for a living. That's like a big part of my job, like researching and writing. And it was the night of the election, that Tuesday night, and I was trying to figure out, well, this is after everybody had voted, and I was trying to figure out how does this thing pass? What passes? Let me explain to you what happened, guys. So there was 2 votes you have to make for 65 and 65A, right?
Yeah.
So the first vote was yes or no on medical marijuana, right? So that had to pass by 50% before we got to decide between 65 and 65A. So that was the first tier, right? And then here's where they were going to try to get you. 65 and 65A, you had to choose between those. In order for one of those to pass, how would you think that? You think that one of them had to get more than the other? No, that's not what happened. The way that one of those needed to pass, 65 or 65A, is that one of those had to garner more than 40% of the total electorate, not just the people that said yes to either. They had to get 40% of the total electorate. 65A was a sure death nail to 65. And you guys look up who sponsored 65A, and that's what happened. Okay, they were trying to say you have to have 50% of the total electorate say yes to either, and then you have to have 40% of the total electorate choose one or the other. So let's just say you had 51% of Mississippians that said yes to either, and then that vote was split at all. Neither passes. If you had 60% of Mississippians say yes to either, and then that vote was split down the middle, neither passes. If you have 70% say yes to either, and that vote is split 35%, neither passes. You had to have an overwhelming pass rate on the initial, and then an overwhelming 65 over 65A. What do I think happened? I think people got in there and said, we want it. I don't know the difference between 65 and 65A, but 65 is first. Click and go.
Right.
It was confusing.
It was confusing. It really was. And we're talking about medical marijuana. You would think we would reserve more controversy for recreational marijuana on the ballot.
You're right.
We're talking about something that would help people who are sick, which is a little confounding.
Yeah, it's confounding. I think that what happened was they got scooped. The legislature got scooped.
They got scooped.
Yeah,
The people
scooped the legislature.
Figured it out.
Yeah, I think,
somehow.
I mean, 65A is proof in the pudding that they didn't like 65, right? 65A is a child of the legislature.
It's a Trojan horse.
You're right. So 65's out there, 65A comes out there, and we're all confused, and we don't know. But you remember 65 or 65A had to get 40% of the total electorate, and it did.
And it did.
Yeah, it's nutty. So, the legislature says, well, it's not going to be implemented correctly. August 21st, August 2021, we're pursuant to that, what we passed, by August 2021, we're supposed to have a system in place to dispense medical marijuana cards for the people that are ill. That's fast, man.
Is it going to happen, you think?
That's 8 months, no. I don't know if they can do it.
There will be something that will stall it.
The Department of Health, and that's where, back on Law Focus, there's a Mississippi Supreme Court case going right now brought by the mayor of Madison.
That's right. I saw that.
The mayor of Madison, her name is, I'm sorry, I can't recall it. Her name is Mary Butler. Mary Butler has said that initiative, 65, got on the ballot incorrectly, and the reason it did was because in order to get something on the ballot, you're supposed to choose from 5 districts, equal number of signatures from each district. Well, there aren't 5 districts anymore because we changed that. There's only 4 districts. So it's a technicality. Lynn Fitch, the Attorney General, I don't know what her stance is now, but she has said this is all nonsense. It's going to pass. The briefs are up there in the Supreme Court now. I think that the mayor had her brief due yesterday or today, and I haven't read it yet, so I apologize. And opposing counsel, that's Michael Watson, Secretary of State's office, and the Attorney General's office will have to file a competing brief. We're going to fight. So
the Attorney General is 465.
Attorney General has had a public statement that says that, not 465, but the Attorney General has made a public statement in the Clarion Ledger that dictates that she believes that the initiative was properly on the ballot.
You're right.
Not saying 65 or 65A, just listen, the people voted.
Right.
So this is all very interesting. So what we've focused on in Law Focus today is we got a flag, but it could go up to initiative or could go up to a referendum. We got 65, but there's a Supreme Court case on it. And then nationally in the election, you've got the Biden-Trump battle, right, where there's been over 50 lawsuits, one of which has been successful for the Trump camp, and a lot of them have been dismissed and things like that. So, you know, you got an election, but then you've got a lot of fallout afterwards this year. So it's very interesting legally.
So it's not over till the fat lady sings.
Yeah, it's not over till that happens, and it's not over till the inauguration day. It's not over till there's a medical marijuana dispensary, and it's not over till the flag waves over the Capitol building. But
it seems like most of those things are going to be the way they are.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of overturning, and maybe the people here, you know, as there are attacks on the sanctity of the right to vote or the sanctity of the vote and how official it is and how fair it is, maybe we look to the courts. I mean, for instance, in the Trump-Biden thing, you know, you might not trust the vote. Some people don't, you know. And but the courts have said, you know, 49 out of 50 times that there's no fraud, you know. And Trump has appointed 3 U.S. Supreme Court justices. So if it does get to the Supreme Court and they say yes or no, you know, where does our trust end? You know, we always trusted the vote, right?
Right.
It's a national system. If people don't trust the vote, and then they don't trust the courts, and then they don't trust the media, and then, you know, where
don't trust the politicians,
right? You know
either. Yeah.
Do you just trust your friends? So we have to understand that that's where we are right now. So there's a Supreme Court. There's a U.S. Supreme Court. I don't know if any of these Trump-Biden challenges are going to get there, but do understand that, you know, the system is in place and the system is chugging along. The wheels are rolling. The wheels are rolling for medical marijuana, the state flag, and the Biden-Trump election.
So those were the 3 big things today. Is there anything else that comes to mind? Any other? I mean, those are 3 huge things.
Those are 3 huge things, and I think that those are mushrooms. I mean, I think that as we explore those, they're just going to get bigger and bigger through the new year. We're going to see this in the next couple of months. We're going to see a lot of movement on all of those things. Mm-hmm. And then what I'm going to do in 2021, and also, guys, I've had some questions, is Mississippi Supreme Court and the U.S. Supreme Court renders opinions each week almost. Sometimes, you know, U.S. Supreme Court a little less often, but what I'll do is we'll get some of those hand-down lists, is what they call those. Those are lists of those cases that have been brought down. And I do this to a certain extent for Mississippi and the U.S. Supreme Court. And we'll go over some of those cases, hopefully for about a show every month, every 6 weeks, and sort of do a recap, because that is the law. That is watching the law change, which is really quite interesting.
Well, on that note, we will now say goodbye to our friends at home, because we've now run out of time. I've just learned.
Yeah, all right.
Here on Law Focus for this edition, and maybe we'll talk more about these subjects on the next edition.
Yeah, we'll continue to talk about everything that interests you and me. Let's do it.
Well, these are the hot topics today. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you next time on Law Focus.
Goodbye. Merry Christmas.
Paran's Jambalaya Kitchen. Homemade Cajun dishes for takeout, curbside pickup, or home delivery. Call 228-207-2821. We serve offices, we cater, and we serve hungry families. From jambalaya and pastalaya to cracklins and boudin. Especially appealing, our wonderful and legendary pecan pie. That's Paran's. Call 228-207-2821.